Brilliant stuff. Just a quick show of hands. Anyone in the audience who was there in Sevilla last time out? All right, good stuff, good stuff. Can I see a couple of hands? Quick show of hands of those of you who are going to Sevilla in September. Okay, good, good, good. I like to see it, okay. So just remember the 20th and the 21st. So there you have it. Now, sustainability, that's a word that gets used quite often nowadays, doesn't it? In the context of economics, the environment, in business, and of course, in sports. And obviously, this is a word that has a multi-purpose to it. It has a lot of different definitions. So I've actually highlighted one in which I would like to share with all of you right now. Sustainability consists of fulfilling the needs of current generations without compromising the needs of future generations, while ensuring a balance between economic growth, environmental care, and social well-being. And the reason that I picked this specific definition is because I feel as though it's quite applicable to the next chat that we're going to have right now, but of course from a sporting context. A sustainable future, the time for action is here and now, a discussion around how to understand the next steps in a successful implementation of sustainability in sports, which is brought to you by our partners, SportsERP. So please help me in giving a warm welcome to our moderator, Jaime Dominguez from World Football Summit, putting in quite a shift today. Jaime, welcome back. Next we have Sudarshan Gopaladesikan. Apologies, you're going to have to help me out with that one. Very tricky name. Director of Football Intelligence from Atalanta B.C. Welcome. Serdar Yıldız, CEO of SportsERP. Hello, welcome, merhaba. Aslı E, Head of Marketing, International Partnerships and Sustainability, İstanbul Başakşehir Futbol Kulübü. And this is a nice big panel. We have one more speaker for you, Tan Kesler, Vice Chairman of Hull City AFC. Hello, welcome. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Sandra. Thank you so much. Well, I don't know if this is working, guys. Okay. Anyway, hope you can listen to me, and if I can ask people in the back to keep, the level a little bit down. It's not working, guys.
It's not working yet.
No.
People at the back,
Give me
if you could just keep the volume down a little bit, please, we would really, really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Is this on? Okay. Thank you, everyone. Yeah. So if we can keep the noise a little bit down at the back of the room, I would highly appreciate, because I think we have a very interesting panel. I want to thank you all for joining me up on the stage. I'm sorry for you guys, you're seeing me again for a second time, but I think you're going to enjoy this conversation quite a lot. I'm going to talk about sustainability. And sustainability, I think we can frame this conversation around the three levers of sustainability, which is economic, social, and environmental. And I think we have great examples here of how this is being applied in the football industry. Because let's not make the mistake, sustainability is not only about the environment, it's about the three levers that we discussed. So, Tan, if I can, I want to start with a broad question. Why? Why should football clubs, or why should sustainability be at the front of the list of football clubs?
It's a great question, but for me, I'm very pleased to be here because it's obviously my own country. And being invited by you guys, I thank you very much. And being in front of most of the familiar faces, some of the new faces, it's been a pleasure. So back to your question, why it's so important? Because today's modern football, the competition is so fierce. Therefore, top teams, they still have to sustain their own resources. But clubs like us on the mid-tier, if not trying to be on the upper tier in Premier League, we have to go back to our own resources and manage our resources in the most sufficient way. So therefore, it's important. Obviously, we as a club, we identified it in three different areas in terms of the sustainability of the academy, in terms of sustainability of our facilities, and also the football operations are we identified in three, and environment is one of the most important one, which we will get to later, I think. But to be honest, it's on the front of the list, but when you start owning a club and running a club, aside from the cliche answer that I want to give you, I give you my honest answer. It's really, the success is the most important and driving force, then creates the sustainable environment for your club. So for us, when we first came in, all these sustainability issues about improving the academy, improving, you know, the cost, etc., didn't matter. We just came in and we just literally bought a lot of players, spent a lot of money, and then try to compete and try to, you know, represent our country and also remain in the most, in my opinion, most vicious league championship, and then be able to progress. So that's actually, right now, this season is the season for us where we apply all these projects. That's why I'm here, actually, to be with you guys about sustainability.
Okay.
If it was last year, I'd probably be one of the weakest link in the group as far as the sustainability conversation. So.
Okay, thank you for that. So it's, last year in Football Innovation Forum in Sevilla, there was a quote from Michele Uva. He's the head of sustainability at UEFA, no? And he said that innovation, sustainability, and football are very strongly linked. I want to ask you, so do you agree with that statement, and why?
Sure. Thank you, Jaime. Thank you for World Football Summit for having me here. It's a nice excuse to get to Istanbul and to couple that with the Champions League final. For someone who loves football a lot, it's an amazing experience, so thank you. I kind of want to be Captain Obvious, maybe, and just go through each of those three words. Innovation, to me, maybe is just the process of reviewing the processes and methods that we use to be able to achieve certain objectives, whether it's in the transfer market, whether it's in human performance, whether it's in match analysis, whether it's in commercial aspects, which I know nothing about. But innovation is just simply the review of what processes are we doing today, how are they helping us achieve these objectives that we've set out for ourselves, and do we modify these processes, or should we add new processes to the mix? And then if you think about the word sustainability, I mean, it has the word ability in it. So like sustainability is the ability to sustain. Sustainability for us, especially as a football club, and Atalanta is a good example, we're not the top in Italy. We try to be competitive. And it's the ability to consistently, year after year, be competitive in the top 6, top 7 of Italy, even though maybe our wage bill or the amount that we spend is not as much as our top-end competitors. And then football, football for us, I guess it's the concept around which we as a community come together, enjoy, talk, do business, everything in between, and that's probably examples of the objectives that we're trying to reach, whether it's profit and loss statements, whether it's on the pitch, like where you're going to land in the table, whether it's the number of youth academy players that you're going to promote into your first team. So maybe if I could rephrase your question, innovation, sustainability, football is it possible to continually review the processes that we do in order to year after year hit or have the ability to hit objectives that we've set out for ourselves? And I mean, I would hope that everyone would say yeah, yeah to that answer. Perhaps the only people that would not say yes would be living in Italy. I went to Modena, where they make balsamic vinegar, and they probably are making balsamic vinegar the same way for the last 600, 700, 1,000 years. So maybe they would say, like, no, we don't need to innovate. But even then, that is innovation. It's the constant reviewing of processes. And even if you say, you know what, we don't have to change anything, don't fix what's not broken, that's innovation as well. So yeah, I think it's all linked.
I think you make an interesting point there, and it's that innovation, it's not about disruptive technology. It's about adding value to the ecosystem, right? So as long as we can improving those processes, and setting the objectives and adding value to the overall whatever. If it's our fans, if it's our partners, if it's whoever stakeholder is looking into our organization, that's the value, no? Serdar, I want to turn over to you now, because as we said at the beginning, sustainability is also about financial performance. And given your breadth of exposure to different clubs and all the activities that you're involved in, we were just discussing, and I was just amazed. I do want to ask you, do you think clubs pay special attention to their business and financial processes?
Thank you, Jaime. First of all, I would like to thank you for inviting us to this fantastic event, and also give us the opportunity to speak on this beautiful subject. So when it comes to your question, first of all, we need to understand that football is not only a game anymore. It is an important business that we need to manage carefully. So as you can understand, there are two sides: on the pitch, off the pitch. Sporting side, the business side. If we can see a balanced environment, a balanced importance on these two sides, we can talk about sustainability. But when I say this, when I look into your eyes, I can see that everybody thinks like, okay, it's normal, it is, everybody knows this. But I believe we don't say it by our hearts, we say it by our mouths. Because we saw many clubs going bankrupt after getting important sporting results on the pitch, because they didn't pay enough attention on the business side of the game. So I will give you two examples. For example, in the last decade, UEFA and professional leagues, they are trying to establish a mechanism, a regulation, set of rules in order to prevent us from going bankrupt, in order to prevent us from spending more than what we have. So why do we need this? Why do they need to do this? This is important. Because why can't we do this by ourselves? It may be silly, but have you ever seen a regulation preventing us from playing less than 2 defenders? Of course, it is silly. Nobody will do this, because if you do this, you will lose the game. It is easy. But what about the regulations preventing us from spending more than our budgets, more than what we have in our pockets? Isn't it as illogical as playing with less than 2 defenders? If you spend more than your budget, you will lose your feature. It is easy, but it shows the importance on the business side, that we don't give enough importance on the business side with all stakeholders, not only the club managers, I mean the media, fans, members. They need to understand the importance. In order to survive, in order to be sustainable, you need to manage this business. And my second example is that take a look at the sports ecosystem, the sports environment. And on the pitch, you will see many companies working for AI development, scouting, tactics, player data, and they have fantastic products. I believe we need to use them in order to increase our performance on the pitch. But turn your hat to the business side of the game, you will see almost nobody. There are just few people trying to do something because there is no demand from the club side. This is critical. This shows us that we don't give enough importance. So whenever we start seeing a balanced environment, then we can talk about sustainability in sports business. Otherwise, we need those bad guys, of course they're not bad, to regulate us, to prevent us from going bankrupt. You can ask me what you do as a company. So SportsERP is like a software house, and we produce 3 completed products and 1 ready project for the business side of the game. The first product is related with the club management side, all the business aspects, including team transfers, players, agents, scouting, sponsors, broadcasting, cash flows, P&Ls, whatever you have in the club management side, including with the contract management technology in a digital way. And with the help of data integration, we calculate everything automatically on behalf of the club. And also, we give them the ability to change scenarios and see a dynamic budgeting system. And our second product is related with the academy management, I mean the youth academies. And our third product is related with the other side of the table, related with players and also agents. Because we need to understand that these guys are important business people. They need to manage their businesses. So we help them to manage their businesses in the same way that we help the clubs. The last but not the least project is managing the leagues, the ecosystem, with all the stakeholders, including clubs, federations, leagues, players, agents, sponsors, financial institutions, auditors, in order to rule all ecosystem in one solution. So this is okay for the first question. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that. And I think you make an interesting point, which is, at the end of the day, what happens off the pitch and behind the scenes, let's say. The problem with football, it's that it's a business that it's exposed to the public in a very meaningful way. But it's really what happens behind the scenes that it's establishing the good foundations to effectively perform better on the pitch, right? And I think, well, whoever wants to find out more about what SportsERP is doing, they can go back to the stand and they're going to show you a couple of options there that are going to be very, very interesting, no? By the way, again, if I can ask the people in the back to keep noise down so we can listen to the panelists, I would highly appreciate that. Ashley, another strong word that is linked to sustainability is values. And your club is, you know, rooted in a strong set of values. So I wanna understand from you, how are you using sustainability to connect more with fans based on values?
Thank you very much for the question and for the hospitality. And as a member of the host country, I would like to welcome you again as the World Football Summit, and would like to welcome the amazing guests here. And for us, we are a very new club. Some of you maybe know about Istanbul Başakşehir, and it has been a very challenging 9 years already for us on the pitch and off the pitch. And we also have a very strong competition in the same city of Istanbul. So what we are trying to do is make a different brand proposition to our fans, and sustainability is a huge part of it. And because it's not a secret that the behaviors, the demandings of fans have been changing for a long while, and it's only now more obvious following a great pandemic, you know, global pandemic, which also brought a great economic, social, and environmental change in our lives. They still love the game. They still have a huge passion for the game. But young men and women in particular, they now want us to be more than football clubs. They have a huge sensitivity in environmental and social issues. So I believe it is the key to provide them to something common value, some cause that they can support, they can defend, they can advocate. So I believe it's the key for us to make even more connected to them. We are trying to be there before even they get there to provide the cause for them.
Thank you, Ashley. Again, I'm sorry to insist, but if I can ask the people in the back to keep the noise to a minimum so that people here in the front can listen to what the panelists are saying, would appreciate that.
Do you want me to make it in Turkish also?
Maybe that's the next.
Maybe.
That's the next try. Don't ask me to try in Turkish. Okay. Anyway, Tan, I want to go back to you because in the previous panel we were talking about the importance of the stadium and how it's one of the best levers or the biggest levers that football clubs need to really embrace and as an asset. Okay. Now, what initiatives has Hull City put in place to, you know, sustainable practices that you can share with the audience in terms of, you know, that you're putting in place at Hull City? Sure.
So we've actually, I'd like to give you a little bit of a background about us, owning the Hull City. About last January, we completed the acquisition. So therefore, as a once we completed it, we realized we have a fairly new but 20-year-old stadium that's in the heart of the city center, where it attracts, basically, it's the only show in town except rugby, which takes place in our stadium as well. So we are a multi-sport stadium that is being managed under us as a club. So, and fairly 20 years old, so therefore we needed to identify how we can improve the fan experience, how we can sustain our fans, because in the background, one of the reasons that we were so welcome and able to buy the club is because the previous ownership had fallout with the fan base due to a name change. So the stadium capacity is 25,000, and then and I know you've been in the stadium as well. So 25,000, and we were playing against 8,000 people, probably 6,000 on site. In a way, the fans were not supporting the club, and they were fading and focusing on other sports, if not other social activities. So we identified it, and we realized the only way we could do that is just to give them a different experience, more entertaining football, and also improve the match day experience. So what we did is we immediately created a project where we're now building solar farms for the environmental issue of it. So we're going to be generating within 18 months, I think, our own electricity. Therefore, it'll cut and it'll cut down the massive cost, which is right now in England is just probably the biggest issue that everybody talks. In terms of the fan experience, as I mentioned in a joking way, we spend a lot of money on experience and international players, so people can see that this club is not just a mediocre club. They're trying to do something. But also, in our long-term project, the academy was the key. So our setup is, our academy is in a different site, which is away from the stadium, probably 30 minutes, and our first team training ground to 40 minutes. So I always envision in football, all these young people who wants to be in this, in football, whether as a football player, supporter, or technical side of the business, they should be within that environment and feel it and live it. So what we're doing is actually we're bringing all the operation back in the stadium, and we started already as soon as we taken over. So our academy and our first team will be within the same stadium area, within the vicinity of the stadium area, where they can see actually the first team player develop and perform, where they're coming actually to be like them. So we're trying to create a culture which I think we established, because our manager is here and our head of strategy is here. Thanks for them to support me all the way from England. With their support, we now play against 23,000. We finished the league on 15th, which is not a great achievement, yet our fans actually stood by us. And then, but also the most important thing we did was the new generation. So we realized football is now the biggest sporting event in England, and then people take it very seriously, and they spend quite a bit of money and time to it. So therefore, we did reached out to under 8s, under 12-year-olds, and last season we played. We gave them free tickets, basically free admission in a say, to come in and support us. Now, I think we've achieved that. I'm not going to say 23 out of 23,000, 20,000 was kids, but obviously we had quite a bit of a new generation wanted to come back and believed in our project and believed in club's longevity, and then came and support us. So a lot of things happening this year for us in terms of sustainability, but to be environmental side, I'm proudly say that, the solar farm idea is probably one of the couple clubs in championship that came in, and we're one of the leaders in that.
Well, it goes back to what we were mentioning before. I think clubs are becoming more than football clubs, and that's an excellent example. And another key point from that I took away from what you just said, Tan, is that it's really impressive to see how just the change in the culture, it's driving good results. Again, it goes back to the topic of, I don't need to be disruptive to innovate. I just need to make a change in the culture that's going to help me become more sustainable as a club, and it's going to help me get more or better results. Again, focusing on all those levers, you know, it's the economic, it's the social, and it's the environmental. So effectively through that action, you're getting better financial results, you're getting a better sense of community from a social perspective. So it's really, everything, as you see, is very closely linked, no? And now, since we're speaking to the academies, I think it's a good segue to, for me to ask Sats, because Atalanta in 2019, you know, inaugurated a new, quite impressive building, if you haven't seen that, for the youth academy, right? So I want to ask you, Sats, what role, or can you give your perspective, does investing in youth play in helping build more sustainable clubs?
Sure, no, thank you for the question. I've been very lucky to, before I was in Atalanta, I was at Benfica, which is also widely regarded as a top academy, and then Atalanta as well within Italy is regarded as an academy. So I'm merely just a steward of two great clubs that have been investing a lot in the youth for over a decade, over 2 decades. Yeah, I fully agree, or I fully believe in the value, and not just economically, the value community-wise, the value socially in investing in youth sports. I'll try to break it down into different categories, perhaps. First, financially, if you invest in youth sports, you first ask the question, how much does it cost, whether it's turning on the lights, whether it's watering the pitch, whether it's the electricity, whether it's the salary of coaches, everything like this. How much does it cost to produce a player that is at the average or median level within your league? And so you have two options, obviously. You have an option which is promote a player through the youth academy that can play at that median level and then has some sort of resale value if another club wants to transfer that player in. Or you bring a player who might be young, but you bring them into the first team or the second team. But that player comes in with different wage requirements. That player comes in with different expectations. And so we did some sort of this work at Benfica, which we found out that the cost to develop a player at the youth level is infinitely much cheaper than buying a player, integrating that person into your professional teams, paying them a big wage, because the wage bill is large in part the largest percentage in which our operational costs go to. So if you build a very strong academy, you reduce your operational costs, but then your return on investment just explodes. And I think Benfica and Atalanta are very good examples of that. But if you let aside perhaps the financial part, because I don't know, that part is it's important, but whatever. Investing in youth sports creates a very strong brand within the city and within the club. So when you create a very strong image that you're a strong academy, it incentivizes parents and kids to want to participate in sport and participate in activity. And the optionality that kids have within Bergamo, which is where Atalanta is based, is increased. And I guess to bring it back to financials, if you look at the clubs like Atalanta, Red Bull, Benfica, when you're a kid coming from these academies, you could probably have the same level of skill as a kid coming from another club, but just because you've built yourself as a brand of a strong academy, there's a tax that you have to pay now when you get a player from Benfica, or when you get a player from Atalanta, or when you get a player from Red Bull Salzburg, even though that player might have the same amount of skill as a player coming from another club. And so by investing in youth, you invest in your brand, and that brand then carries a lot of weight when you then do business with other clubs. I guess the last thing to mention is infrastructure, which Tan was talking about. And infrastructure is a huge piece with Youth Academy. When kids walk into an impressive building, it's impressive. Kids have a sense of responsibility. It's not like we have to be adults to be responsible. When kids walk into the building that's impressive, they're like, wow, I want to be a professional. I want to show my 110% every day with my teammates, with myself, with my coach, with my peers. I see the first team players around, and by having good infrastructure and by investing in infrastructure for kids, not just for the first team, you create a very good footballing culture. And so, I agree with investing in youth.
There's that word again, culture, no, and connection, and how important this is, because at the end of the day, when you're able to, and what I take away from what you just said is that connection is going to drive more engagement from the community. Yep. It's going to drive more engagement from fans, and if you think about it, more engagement is going to drive greater revenues. So at the end of the day, everything is linked, which is what we were saying at the beginning.
Actually, if I may just
Please.
Make one comment, Hull has a fantastic player right now that a lot of teams in Europe are looking at. His name is Jacob Greaves, and he's from the hometown of Hull. And maybe, I don't know if you want to speak a little bit about the impact that a player like that has had in the community, perhaps.
Yeah, it's thank you for acknowledging actually one of our players as one of the biggest clubs. But it's also, as a club, and obviously football side, I haven't touched base a little bit, but I just want to start it off. When we also took over, we wanted to, we wanted to describe what entertainment football is, because new generation, the new generation that comes in want to play football. They actually have the identity, what they want to do within the football as a sport. So they want quick results. They want a quick pace. They want to be able to be seen by the, like observers or fans. They want to be around the ball. So it was an important key for us to make our academy staff and players to understand what is our philosophy developing players and how we develop players. So, and we had spoken about this for 6-7 months as an ownership, but when you're speaking from the higher level, it doesn't make too much sense for a football side. So our current coach, he's actually massive in terms of the philosophy. And then when we sat down about during his hiring process, he just literally gave me what we want to play in 5 minutes to me and the chairman. We were so impressed. So what we're trying to do is we want to have the ball, and we want our fans to see the ball on us, not on the opponent. Mm-hmm. Obviously, you're going to say, yeah, okay, this is Manchester City, tomorrow they're going to play. No, because there's a uniqueness the way in the way that playing this way, because you can constantly reinvent as long as you have the ball. You don't have to play like Manchester City or Brighton or anybody else. You can play your own whole style because the profiles are different. So coming back to the academy, from our first team, whatever we play, in possession, out of possession, it goes all the way down to the, like under 12s. And just to understand, not tactically, but the concept of the game. So we've sold last year one of our wingers to 20 million to Brentford because they wanted to invest in such profile that they think he can just do the adjustment to a higher level because of the modern football. So Jacob is our next protege. And as a club, we will moving forward as every time we compete, it can't be, like Serdar said, it can't be just the chairman comes in, because in championship, it's heavily owner-funded clubs, and they always go bust. So we can't do this for 5, 6, 7 years by just investing 20 million, 15 million based on our financial fair play headroom. We can't be doing this. So we need to develop, and what I mean by football sustainability is this. So boys like Jacob, when I hear like Atalanta is scouting it, when I get calls from, top clubs in Premier League and telling me, don't play him in on the left back, like you said, play him please on a central defender position because he's such a value for the club. And we're developing. Our goal is, we compete on the highest level and chase the dream of Premier League as the first Turkish owners and the first Turkish-owned club, which the club had done it in the past with different ownerships. But at the same time, we'd like to expose 3 young players into it every year to first team environment and showcase one of them. good thing that we're talking about Jacob Greaves, probably like our audience would look into him, but also with our coach, we had another player that appeared from Northern Ireland who we recruited for under 21 team, and he became our regular starter towards the end of the season. He's 19 years old. So this is the only key for clubs like us to maintain our sustainability in financial way. Otherwise, we would have to, the pressure of the competition, we would have to spend money, we would have to invest. And if it doesn't work out, you crumble down in a way. But I thank you very much for acknowledging him. So at least we have a little bit of a market for our young player.
No, but
you can talk afterwards, perhaps.
But that's a good example of how to really develop a strong strategy from all angles, right? So you're looking at the business side, you're looking at the player development side, which also reinforces the community. At the end, it's like a puzzle, right? And that's what keeps the engine going. So I think those are good examples. And speaking of that, Serdar, I want to ask you, because you and I once had a conversation and you told me that if you manage contracts well, you actually manage 90% of the clubs well. So this goes, related to tickets, to sponsors, broadcasting, whatever, right? I don't know, again, going back to your experience or your exposure to different clubs in Turkey and in Europe, how, are there any other examples of how you're helping or you're seeing things on clubs that are running their clubs and how you guys are helping them be more sustainable from all angles?
Thank you. Of course, I remember this interview. It was lovely. So, as you mentioned, look at the club P&L side, for example, and in the revenue side, we have broadcasting, we have sponsors, we have ticketing, and maybe tournament revenues, maybe transfers. So when you look, all of these are managed by contracts, except for the match day tickets. And go down to expense side, we have 75%, fortunately, player salaries, 5% for agents, maybe transfers again, and match day operations. These are all managed by contracts again. So again, I want to stress that if you can manage the contracts, because the business side of the game is managed by contracts, 90–95%, you can rule the game. This is easy. So when we look at the giant clubs in Europe, you will see almost the same thing in almost all clubs, unfortunately. They use some accounting and finance solutions, and the rest are managed by Excel spreadsheets only. So what we do is, first, we digitize all the contracts in a software, so that when we digitize it in a parametric way, you can check it in your mobile phone, at your desktop, wherever you are, and whenever you want, easily. And then with the help of data integration, we calculate everything, all the conditions, all the bonuses, options in the contracts automatically with alert mechanism, and let the clubs know everything easily with the technology. And after calculating everything, people can simulate the year-end scenarios easily because the system has all the information. So, but now we go 1, 2, 3 steps further. Now we do the same for leagues, players, and agents. As I told you before, players are important business people. Some people think that what business they have, they are just players, but now they are professional players, which means that they need to manage their business, they need to manage communication, social media. They need to establish a strategy to improve their career. So they need to manage the contracts, lawyers, conditions, money, even the nightlife trainings, everything is their business life, So you can think easily many top talent players, but they couldn't succeed. Why? Because they couldn't manage their businesses. Again, there are two sides. So what we do here is to help them to manage their businesses and to let them get information in terms of their contracts, with the notifications, with their mobile phones, and in communication with their agents. And we try to increase their awareness on the importance of the business side of the game again. Thank you.
Well, and that's a good point. I mean, I think, and it's something I've been discussing with a lot of the guests on the World Football Summit podcast, how athletes are becoming more business savvy, and they need to professionalize in that sense as well. Yeah. And it's a reality that we cannot avoid. And then going into the broader ecosystem, Ashley, you told us about your fans, how you're connecting with them, but there's also another key element, which are partners. So how is the club involving partners in your sustainable strategies? Because there's a couple of good examples there that I think the audience can learn from.
Yeah, that's a very good question, the tricky one, I guess. Well, I'm going to try to be as honest as I can in this question. Well, often the most tricky part when you decide to run a social or environmental initiative is to find the money, create the funding. And it's hard. It's even hard for the bigger clubs, but it's the hardest for the mid-sized and small-sized clubs. It's not a priority, even for the bigger clubs in Turkey, among all of this cost and necessary investments. But on the other side, beside the money, we also need partners, alliances to make our impact even bigger, to spread the word to a wider community. I'd like to share with an example, since we are talking about also innovation here. So what we did with Turkish Airlines this season is we used one time biofuel in one of our flights to one of the European cities in the European competitions. And biofuel is a fuel, but it's produced from natural resources, very expensive one. It's a very good innovation, but it's a very expensive one. Mm-hmm. So for clubs, even the big clubs, we cannot afford it throughout the season for all the matches. So that's why we need alliances. I guess what we are doing in our strategy is to create a common value. I'm just glad that we can get this creative enough to be able to work with all of these amazing partners, sponsors who are supporting us in our initiatives. But in our case, we always see sustainability as a matter of collaboration more than competition.
Agree. Another key word, collaboration, and it's something you and I have talked about in the past, no? Rather than competition. Well, Tan, Ashley, Serdar, Sats, I want to thank you because this has been a great conversation, but I cannot let you go with one final question that I would like to ask all of you, which is basically, first, how have you seen the word, quote unquote, sustainability evolve over time in the industry? And more importantly, I guess, what does the future hold? So if you have any opinion, maybe Tan, we can start with you, and then we can go in order.
I think it's just obviously like what I see in the future is just being able to not just survive, but also evolve in your own context and create a better resources for yourself in terms of the sustainability. Because okay, if you just put solar farms in your stadium, great, you cut down the electricity and it helps us. That's the part, like what Serdar was also saying as the business side. Okay, we did something, and what are we going to use that, you know, resource or saving to next is the key for my answer to your question. Because if you can't create that continuity and consistency, then it just basic projects per year we all have and which we all try to achieve, then it just at one point clubs are due to compete. So at one point in the competition we break. So to do that, so I guess constantly reinvesting back to yourself from whatever you gathered from what you save in a way. Especially clubs like us. If next year we promote for Premier League, I might not have the same vision. I might come back with the chairman and say, look, you know, we're now more aggressive. Now we're going to do something more environmentally because we have the budget, extra budget that came from a different revenue stream. But also, like, you know, I want to mention today was a special day for us as Ajun Media Group, because we've just announced another acquisition of an Irish club, which is Irish Super League club. part of the sustainability in a way, if you per se, because what what everybody talked about here, to develop an asset, you need, I think, a multi-sources. So we decided Ireland is a fantastic transition for our player development route, where we can actually in the future benefit from that and reinvest it in our club and club's future success. So it's Shelbourne Football Club today, as of today, is going to be our parent club, multi-club ownership model.
Well, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And thank you for sharing. Ashley?
Well, before I go into my part, I would like to add to Tan something, is that when you promote to the Premier League, obviously you will have a more audience watching you. Then it's going to be maybe your responsibility to be a sustainable club, because it's also what we've done in Başakşehir. When we promote to the Champions League stage, we felt the responsibility on ours, and we said that we have to do something good for the community, and it has to be a common problem to be able to speak to a wider community. It was a more like responsibility for the club as well. So the show is bigger, so what we're going to tell must be the bigger enough. And for the future, obviously we are in a better position than a couple years of earlier, but I think we still need guidance in sustainability in every aspect. We need strategies, the realistic ones, and to contribute to help achieving the SDGs in particular. And to be honest, no football club 100% sure what this is really. So we need experts. But most important, we need leadership. It's a matter of leadership at the same time. And as football clubs, we don't have the luxury to ignore the cause, because it's also, I believe, will be a key point to stay connected with more fans and to stay connected with our own fans in the future.
Thank you, Ashley. Serdar, any?
I think the awareness on the sustainability, of course, in the economic side, is improved with two factors. The first one is, unfortunately, clubs getting bankrupt or facing financial problems. And the second thing is the regulator side. They are bringing new regulations. The UEFA changed the name of the regulation even from UEFA FFP, financial fair play, to financial sustainability. This is also important. And because of the popularity of the football clubs, I believe that when clubs go bankrupt, people will understand that nothing goes forever. This is also a key aspect.
Thank you, Serdar. Suits, any final thoughts?
Sure. I agree with what everyone else has said before me. I think just the number of conversations that are happening around sustainability, thanks to conferences like this one and other initiatives that are happening within our football industry and community, is a huge evolution that I've seen in terms of sustainability. And perhaps maybe the best way to say it, or the best way I can think of, is what does it mean to be a champion? Nowadays, Generation X and Gen Z, whatever letter it is, the younger generation that's coming up, it's not always being the Premier League champion that's the cool thing. It's not always being the Champions League winner that's the cool thing. That's always going to be cool, but now people are celebrating Forest Green Rovers. People are celebrating the business models of Brentford and Brighton. People are celebrating the business models of strong academies. People are celebrating very cool, social, innovative projects that different clubs are doing. And perhaps what it means to be a champion and what people are celebrating has changed from just being first place on a table or picking up a trophy. And so I think that's been an amazing evolution of sustainability, and that's something that will carry things forward. In terms of the future of sustainability, it just goes back, I think, to maybe what Serdar was saying, is contracts are super important. And what I mean by contracts is there's so much inefficiency in terms of wage bill to performance. If you measure the relationship between your wage bill and performance, you'll probably find that not every club is optimizing on their performance objectives relative to how much they're spending in their wage bill. And so if we can maybe use data, if we can use different innovations to reach the performance objectives that each club has set out for themselves, whether it's top table, mid-table, just surviving from relegation, while spending less on their wage, perhaps that does free up some funds to be able to put into other places. And as Aslı was saying, combining that with leadership and strategy from the top-down level, we can make better impact and better change.
May I add one point here?
Yes, please.
Regarding the contract, I agree with what you said. And if you want a sustainable future, you need to align the financial results of the game with the supporting results at the same time. For example, when you lose a game, when you win a game, of course your financials change. You earn an extra money, but the distribution of this extra money is really important. In a classical club, when you go higher than your expectations, you make profit. When you go below than expectations, you make losses. But you need to create a self-hedging mechanism through your contracts in order to hedge you, to prevent you from going, having deficit in the financial side with the contracts.
I think, and just to finish up and wrap up this session, what I'm taking away from this is that as we see the industry becoming more professional, and I think there's a trend towards becoming more professional, more robust strategies, diversification strategies that Tan was sharing, that leads to innovation. And that innovation doesn't have to be a disruptive technology. You can have, for example, Serdar shared a good example of, hey, we're just helping clubs digitize their operations. Or we talked about culture, the connection with fans, right? Or we were just mentioning the contracts. I mean, those are little things that we see every day, and that is helping drive our innovative strategies, which is helping us become more sustainable clubs. So I hope this was a good example of how all those concepts that we talked about at the beginning on how sustainability, innovation, and football are linked. And I think the panelists here today showed fantastic examples of how they're doing it from all their different angles. And I want to thank you, because personally I learned so much, and I hope the audience did as well. And yeah, thank you all for being in this session too.